Jute, along with all the other junior medics, was rapidly assigned to the bridge to care for the injured crew the moment the danger was contained, all of them working frantically to stabilize the injured crew. "I need some gauze and something to splint his arm," she called to the medic that had been assigned as the runner. Nodding and dashing back to the breakout kit, the young medic searched for a straight splint amongst the chaos and quickly ran back holding a ruler and a roll of field dressing, shrugging apologetically before dashing off to provide kit for another medic. Jute lashed the rudimentary splint to the crewman's arm, muttering to herself, "How the hell did nobody realize or even bother to do a bloody scan?" Working hard to put the crewman in a position that would allow him to respire effectively, despite his injuries, and checking his vitals one last time, before turning to help with what appeared to be the young pilot. She had finally stabilized all the worst of the injured and the pilot seemed okay, if a little dazed and bruised. "You were lucky. How are you feeling now?" she asked him, looking at him closely, assessing him for the major signs of plate and organ damage. "Like I've just been thrown around the room," he replied shakily, and to be fair, if nothing else, it was an accurate assessment. While Jute was finishing up with her assessment of the pilot, she and all the other medics heard a booming voice ring through their heads, the volume all over the place causing them all to clap their hands over their heads in pain at the unbearable emotional transference. "Oh God, no," said Jute, as she realized what must be going on. She grabbed an emergency first aid kit out of the crash kit and began running out of the bridge, ignoring all the other medics' questions. Her mind focused solely on the security feed that showed the cargo bay entrance. The feed became clear in her mind, the security team allowing her temporary access to the lenses that showed the sorry sight of Jamie and Reggie, the human medic being cradled by the muscular human, blood seeming to be pouring from the both of them onto the floor. Jude's heart fell as she saw Reggie's eyes were closed. "Apply pressure to the worst wounds," she communicated to Jamie. "I'm on my way. Do you still have that knife with you?" As Jamie looked up and shook his head, pointing at his makeshift home in the cargo bay. "Damn it," she thought, and then added, "Try and rip his clothes before I get there, and if you can, use the strips to stem the bleeding. I'll be there in a few cycles." She panted hard as she entered the elevator, partially from the exertion and partially out of shock. The image of the downed human burned into her mind. She would never have thought it possible until today. As Jamie cradled Reggie, he laid him down and set to work on the clothing around his wounds, tearing it with ease. "These clothes ain't very good," he muttered, but was glad that he would soon have lots of strips to plug the wounds. As he worked, he tried to make sure the worst bleeding was stopped, making sure not to push any of the aluminum shards into them further. As he waited, he kept checking Reggie's breathing, hoping that he could hang on until Jute got here, dressing some of his own wounds in the meantime, until he heard the soft patter of feet approaching, his heart lifting. It wasn't Jute but the security team, pushing a hover stretcher. Better than nothing, thought Jamie, as he lifted Reggie onto it and glanced at the security team. One was Sarlin, but the other two were some other race looking like overgrown raisins with 4 arms and 6 spindly fingers per hand. But Jamie would deal with this new development later. More pressing matters were at hand as he asked them, "Where is the medical bay?" They gestured for him to follow as they started running, painfully slowly. Jamie told them, "Get on the damn stretcher and point the way, his patients officially run out for the day." As the aliens got in the stretcher with Reggie, they all held on tight as Jamie started to push it and run the air, whipping his wild hair off his face, his wounds slowing him down and making him curse. The aliens still seemed to struggle with the speed and G-forces as Jamie rounded the corner heading towards the elevator, almost running over Jute in the process. He stopped and merely pointed at the stretcher for her to get on with the others, and as soon as she was seated, he began running towards the elevator, throwing them all towards him, the 4 mismatched crew members almost pinned to Jamie as he ran, entering the elevator, and Jute punching the button for the medbay level. As Jamie breathed hard, waiting for the lift to get them up to the appropriate level, the Sarlans and Talaeans looked at him, a mixture of fear, awe, and motion sickness coloring their faces. Eventually, Jute broke the silence as she was inspecting Jamie's handiwork on Reggie. "You did well. These wraps are surprisingly good," she said reassuringly while trying to remove some of the aluminum debris from the wounds, discarding them onto the floor as she worked. Eventually, the doors opened and the 4 jumped back onto the stretcher, bracing themselves as one of the Talians at the front pointed the way, and Jamie took off again at what to them was breakneck speed. Jamie cursing and swearing the whole way as he began to lose momentum, the blood loss starting to affect him too. They rounded a corner and Jute waved at him to slow. Reaching a doorway, she gestured to excitedly. Entering the medbay, Jamie panted hard, his large muscles rippling and glistening with sweat as he stumbled and sat against the wall. His vision becoming blurry, he swept the matted hair from his weather-beaten face, watching the medics work on Reggie. "Anyone got any water?" he asked weakly, the effort of the day finally settling on him, making him woozy. As the medics worked on the two humans, more crew members from the bridge began to arrive. Until the medbay was buzzing with activity, Jamie started to feel drowsy and began slipping into sleep. Reggie is in good hands. They care about him, he thought before sleep took him, exhaustion claiming him.